Jason Talks About. And in this episode, Jason talks about the week in AEW, and that includes AEW Dynamite on February 12th, 2025, and AEW Grand Slam Australia, which was the episode of Collision that aired from Australia on pre-tape after NBA All-Star Saturday Night. But before we get into that, I'm your host, Jason Medeiros. The music you hear at the top, that is Reality 508. Find them wherever you find music, and find us wherever you find social media, at Jason Talks About in most places. And above all else, please give us a like and a subscribe on Facebook, and tell your friends, share, and interact with us. And thank you for your support. All right, let's get into it. AEW Dynamite on February 12th, 2025, excuse me. Show kicks off with Max Caster, whatever's going on with this character he has now, where he's just totally unlikable and has go-away heat. He's doing an in-ring promo, and the crowd just, like I said, just totally hates him, and he has this open challenge. The good thing about this is that Hangman answered the bell, and I've been touting the fact that Hangman, I think, is more over maybe than ever now that he became, the badass guy that burns down people's houses and stuff. The crowd was super hot for him, big time cowboy shit chants. This crowd was a good crowd for AEW this week, and they've had some momentum, I feel, in the last weeks, probably in the last maybe month or so, that where the crowds have been really super hot. Caster runs and tried to hide in the crowd, and it was kind of a funny moment because he was actually hiding, like literally like ducking down in the seats, and the fans were actually pointing like, he's right over here, and Hangman went out there, grabbed him, fought him back, to the ring, threw him in the ring. It was very one-sided. Hangman hit the buckshot lariat in a couple minutes and won the match. Exactly what it should have been. If you're going to use Caster, I guess this is the way. With this new gimmick he has, it's just hard to believe that this guy was the coolest rapper on the most over team in the company, maybe in wrestling at the time. And this is what he is now. And I don't know what Anthony Bones is doing. If he's on Ring of Honor, I don't watch that, so, oh well. Okay, so then we go to the Trios Championship, and it was Undisputed Kingdom versus the Death Riders. Not Moxley, but Claudio, Pac, and Yuta. This match started on the outside of the ring. They went to a commercial break. They were outside pretty much the whole commercial. I don't know how the referee didn't get to 10. I don't know. There's no commercials under 10 seconds I'm aware of. Maybe if you hit that little, tiny microscopic skip button on YouTube, that's about it. But on TV, no way. The crowd was hot for this. I have to say the crowd was really good tonight, and they were hot for this match. Schiavone, there was a weird moment. I don't know what Tony Schiavone's doing. If he watches the product, if he pays attention, he said something about the announcers brought up about how badly Yuta gets booed, and he says, well, perhaps he gets booed because he's under duress. And Excalibur and Nigel had to correct him that he's not under duress, and he's been doing a lot of horrible things on his own, and why wouldn't he just leave the group if he was, like, even the other two announcers had to, be like, bro, what are you talking about? It was a really bad moment for Tony Schiavone. And he's had some bad moments lately. And then this match, it was okay. Like I said, the crowd was hot. Wasn't my cup of tea. I'm not a fan of the trios matches in AEW unless there's really good people involved, and I don't know. They always come down to becoming a mess, which this one did. So Knox took a chair. Let me see. One of the heels brought in a chair, and Rick Knox, the referee, took the chair from. It was Yuta had the chair, I believe. He took the chair from Yuta. he did this referee thing where it's a big problem in AEW, especially where the referee takes like 30 seconds to just dispose of a chair. They have to like look out the ropes into the corner at somebody and say, here, take this chair. And it takes that person like a good 10 or 15 seconds to come grab the chair. And they can't possibly just drop it and turn around, because that would be like logical. And anyway, there was a low blow by Yuta to O'Reilly, and he pinned O'Reilly, and the Riders win. The Death Riders win. And then they started to stomp the Undisputed Kingdom, and then Garcia, Daddy Magic, and Angelo Parker made the save. So, yeah, I don't know. Match was just kind of messy end. Didn't like it. Mox and Shafir are backstage. Cope hits Mox from behind with a chair and shoves Shafir into a room where him and Jay White slam the door on the chain to the handcuffs. So she's trapped in this little room, but the briefcase is sticking out because the chain, and Jay White has some kind of wire, whatever, not wire cutters, bolt cutters, I should say, and cuts the handcuffs. And now Mox and White have the briefcase, and they're running away with it. So, which we are supposed to believe, well, it's probably there. I don't see why they'd lie about that the AEW title is in there. Because in the Moxley logic, we don't deserve to see the belt or something, so we don't actually see the World Championship. Okay, MJF is in the back with Renee. He talks about how Texas, they're in Texas tonight, and Dustin Rhodes is going to have a hometown advantage in their match. And Hangman interrupts and basically tells him out because it's supposed to be his interview time, I guess. And MJF says something about, hey, I didn't know that Jack Daniels made a new cologne. And he says that you're a joke. And he says that he's going to become a 2-time champion. And, basically that Hangman's a loser. And I'm paraphrasing. And Hangman just stood there while MJF put him down and then walked away. And I just talked about the badass Hangman and the difference in his character. This reeked of the old Hangman where he was kind of a sad drunk and people would put him down and his feelings would get hurt and he'd stand there with his head down. I don't understand. I figured the new Hangman character would just like crack MJF in the face for talking like that. So hopefully there's a little course correction there because I think Hangman actually has some momentum with the AEW fans. And this did not help. Then it was Joe, Hook, and Shibata in another trios match against these three guys, Grillo, Solo, and Cruz. I think Aaron Solo's the only one I knew. Big time Joe chants. Joe's going to kill you chants. They beat these three guys like nothing. Joe won with a muscle buster. Big time Joe chants as he grabs the mic. And Joe says he wants the patriarchy next week, 3-on-3. And his new group is apparently called the Ops. Him, Hook, and Shibata. Renee is in the back with Jericho and Keith Lee. And talking about the $200,000 bounty on Bandito's head. So this is, I was going to say, I don't know who had the bounty on him initially on those wanted posters. I don't know if Bandito legitimately did something bad in an Old West town and is being hunted down. If so, then I guess the heels would be the good guys. But anyway, Jericho is upping the ante. He's putting a $200,000 bounty on Bandito. Willow is in the back with Renee, Willow Nightingale, and before she can say too much, Marina Shafir attacks her, and Mox threatened Cope and talked about how he's going to break his neck and all kind of stuff, and because he stole this belt. Okay, so I'm sorry, and I left something out. Jericho with that bounty also said he wants a showdown with Bandito. So yes, it's as bad as it sounds. So now we get to the segment. Jericho and Bandito showdown. Bandito was over, I'll give him that. The crowd was behind him. They're in Texas. He's a big time Mexican star, I suppose. So they literally, yes, this is as bad as it sounds. It was a showdown. It was meant to be like the Old West showdowns with guns, although there was no guns. So this made even less sense, and it was as stupid as it sounds. They put a big spotlight on him. They went back to back, and then they did the 10 paces out to the corner of the ring, and then they turned around, and they didn't have guns, obviously, so I don't know what they were going to do at that point. But whatever they were going to do didn't happen because Brian Keith grabbed Bandito's leg from the outside, and then the Learning Tree guys all jumped Bandito, including Big Bill. So then the Outrunners came out to save Bandito. The Outrunners were over. There was a big brawl on the outside. And then when Big Bill was about to chokeslam Bandito on the outside, Hobbs made the save and gave Big Bill a spine buster, and the crowd was chanting, meat, meat, meat. Okay, so it is Texas, so I know they like their steak, and I like a good steak, even though I'm from Massachusetts, so maybe that's why they were chanting meat. I'm not sure. Cope and White are backstage talking about the briefcase. Cope makes a comment about, hey, I held one of these. I had a briefcase like this before, alluding to the Money in the Bank in WWE. He tells the Death Riders to come meet us in the ring tonight. Okay, then Renee is in the back with Dustin Rhodes. He cuts a fiery promo. He's in his hometown, and he tells MJF, I'm the last of my kind, bitch. Now, I paid especially close attention to this match. It was definitely, by far, the best match on the show. One of the better wrestling matches of either company this week, I would say. And I expected that out of these two. Dustin Rhodes is some kind of freak where he's like, I don't know, 55 or 56 now, and he still is one of the better in-ring wrestlers probably going today. MJF came out. He's got this giant MJF banner that came down from the ceiling. That was pretty funny and pretty cool. As the crowd booed the shit out of him. Dustin came out. He was super over. They're in Texas. The Rhodes name alone. And so in the beginning of the match, Dustin had a huge flurry on MJF. And MJF did a great job here being the heel. He's begging off. He's asking for timeout. All the old classics. The announcers also put over the fact that this match would be commercial free. This was a good move because it was the 9:00 hour, and like I said, by far your best match, and two guys that are very recognizable. I mean, probably the biggest star outside of WWE is most likely MJF, I would say. And then you've got, Dustin Rhodes, who a few generations of wrestling fans know pretty well. The crowd was super, super hot. And, I got to say, even though Dustin's older, the way he was beating around MJF, especially in the beginning of the match, worked because Dustin's still a big guy and he's still in this decent shape and he does not move like he's old or anything. The story of the match became MJF eventually working on the arm. He ended up getting an upper hand on Dustin and worked on his arm. Even though I liked the match, there was a couple of things that was so here. Not this part, but MJF, I'm getting to it. MJF had Dustin in the corner. He's giving him the 10 shots to the head, and then he did the gold dust, thing where he fills up his body, but then he gave the middle fingers. And then Dustin ended up getting MJF crotched in the corner. And I don't remember why the referee was distracted. He was distracted for some reason. And Dustin gave him the old, tried to give him the old Shattered Dreams. MJF actually at one point did a crossroads attempt. So that got a lot of boos. He had Dustin in the crossroads, but it got reversed. And then Dustin actually, when Dustin reversed the crossroads, he got MJF into the crossroads. MJF kicked out of the crossroads. Big Let's Go Dustin chants. MJF with a huge pile driver. Dustin kicked out. Then there was actually dueling chants at one point. Let's Go Dustin MJF. I was a little surprised by that. I know MJF's a popular heel, but surprised to see that in Texas. Dustin was wicked over. All right, so here's the parts that I didn't like. I didn't like the whole Shattered Dreams corner stuff. And I didn't like this where MJF grabs a chair from the outside. I think it was Remsburg was the ref. Walks into the ring with the chair, puts it on Dustin's arm. I wrote ref, question mark, like the ref's just kind of admonishing MJF while he's doing all this. Finally, the ref took the chair, and that took forever. And while it took forever, because in the meantime MJF had went to the second rope as if he was going to jump on the chair and break Dustin's arm. And that's when MJF got crushed. So earlier when I said Dustin had a look like, was going to attempt the Shattered Dream and wasn't able to, this time he got it. He got the Shattered Dream. He hit his finisher called the Final Reckoning. And this really looked like it was it. I had a little tiny glimmer of like, wow, are they really going to let Dustin pin MJF? But, I mostly knew they weren't going to do that. But I got to tell you, I think they had the crowd because the crowd went nuts when Dustin hit that finish and 1-2 kick out MJF. MJF eventually got the salt of the earth on Dustin, and Dustin was in it for a long time, fighting, trying to get to the ropes. And then MJF transitioned into the crossface. Dustin fought, was in it for a while, and finally passed out, and MJF wins. Then he grabbed Dustin into the salt of the earth after the bell, and Hangman ran out there, and he let him go, and they had a face-off, and there was big-time cowboy shit chants again, and then they started brawling, and the security came, and they fought into the crowd, and the crowd was saying, let them fight, and MJF grabbed the mic, and he called Hangman a coward, and Hangman came back into the ring, and they brawled some more, and security broke him up again, and there was big let them fight chants. So that was good match and a good ending. And I think this is a little quick. But, well, let's back up. So they go to commercial, they come back, and they show that Hangman gave a buckshot to one of the securities guards. And next week, face-to-face, they're going to be face-to-face. So I wanted to correct myself there. I was going to say a little quick for them. It's not a match next week. It's a face-to-face. So, yeah, not sure how good that's going to be. I'm not super impressed with Hangman on the mic. I think he's okay in short bursts. But let's see what happens next week when they have their face-to-face. Like I said, if it's leading to a match, this would be one of the better matches I think they could put together right now. Two guys are hot. Hangman's as hot as he's been in a long time, and MJF's always at least semi-hot with the crowd. And my guess is it'll probably happen at Revolution. They've been building that pay-per-view. Okay, so next was Megan Bayne, who is super impressive looking and can work, and she fought Maya World, local talent, and Bayne won that easily. When she was walking out, they did the old school thing where the heels leaving the ring and the faces entrance music hits, and they kind of walk by and almost bump into each other. So then Statlander fought Penelope Ford. This was not as dominant a win as Megan Bayne just had, but she did win the match. Bayne came back out, made her way to the ring, got up on the apron. Her and Stat looked at each other, and Penelope, who just lost, attacked Statlander from behind and sent her out of the ring. So it's kind of what happened with Thunder Rosa on Collision a couple of weeks ago. And Megan Bayne gave Statlander the F5 on the outside of the ring. So they're setting up Megan Bayne and Statlander. Think it's a little quick to go to that. I like the idea of the match, but again, it's one of those things where it's like, it would be really good if Megan Bayne got some more wins and Statlander got a few more wins in a row, because now somebody's got to lose. I'm thinking it's not going to be Megan Bayne. I hope not, but I hate to see Statlander lose because it feels like she's just getting momentum again. But, I'm not against the match. Maybe just against the timing. So Harley Cameron had a rap with Puppet Mercedes, and I thought it was pretty funny. And then she suddenly stopped the music and got really serious about being a wrestler and She knows she's on a Mercedes level, and Mercedes says she's a loser, but, you know, they... But when she puts her mind to something, she can do it. She talks about how she learned to sing, play guitar, learn Chinese, become a ventriloquist. She's super talented, and I think the crowd has bought into her. So this is going to be good in Australia. As far as, the crowd and the story, we'll see about the match. We know Mercedes can go. Harley's still pretty green, but let's see if, Mercedes can lead her here. Then there was a tag team championship match. I was looking forward to this one. It was the Guns versus the Hurt Syndicate. Big "We Hurt People" chants, big MVP chants. This was another thing that made AEW look low rent. MVP tried to get on commentary. There was no headpiece for him. The guys were late bringing him a chair. Excalibur even said something about too little, too late, guys. So Excalibur, I guess, didn't give any Fs in this episode because he commenting on the stagehands who didn't do their job fast enough, commenting on Shivani's nonsense earlier on. So, there was "Guns Up" and "Hurt People" dueling chants. Lashley ended up getting the spear and the win. I wrote that I thought the Syndicate won a little too easy. This is the Guns. They're an established team. So they murdered the Private Party to take the belts, and then they beat the Guns pretty easily. I mean, at this rate, there's not gonna, it's not gonna look like they really have any competition. But the Murder Machine, which is the Murder Hawk Monster, Lance Archer, and Brian Cage the Machine, so they're the Murder Machine, came out at the entranceway and applauded their win. So I guess they're gonna set that up. That'll be interesting because it's Callous guys against MVP guys. So that'll be interesting. I still think the best match was Buddy and Brody against these two, but against the Hurt Syndicate. But they had them lose in their first big match, so you got to build them back up now if it's going to mean anything. All right, so believe it or not, folks, the main event of this show was Cope and White in the ring with the briefcase. They're trying to open it with the spiked thing, that spiked 2x4 board, whatever it is, that Cope had used against Christian Cage in their big I Quit match they had. So he tells... Cope tells Moxley, "Accept the challenge in Revolution or we're going to smash this case." And I don't get what this threat is. He's going to smash the case. He's going to smash the title inside the case, which Moxley doesn't care about showing people anyway. Is he just going to smash the case open so they can take the belt out? I don't know why this was a big threat. I mean, I guess Moxley should be pissed. They have his belt, so I guess we can go with that. Moxley, of course, gets pissed off, comes out. He says, "I'm going to show you how much I care when I break your neck, in Australia," and blah, blah, blah. And he says, "You want your match at Revolution, you got it." So they are having the tag match in Australia, but they're also promoting that Cope is fighting Moxley for the world title on Revolution, which is the next pay-per-view coming up. I'm not looking forward to that. I got to be honest with you. No disrespect to Copeland. He's accomplished a lot. I just don't feel like, I don't know. I just don't feel like this is going to be a good match. I just don't have faith in this match, him against Moxley. I'm just not interested in it. It's my opinion. So anyway, the Death Riders with the numbers ended up, getting the belt back. But Jay White and Copeland were able to fight them off and escape. And Moxley was really pissed in the ring, but he did get his belt back, so he should have been happy. So, not a good episode of Dynamite, in my opinion. The highlights were some of the Hangman stuff. MJF versus Dustin, absolutely. Really good match, great match. Hurt Syndicate, I like them, but they're just winning too easily, so there's not really any intrigue there. And I'm not into any of this stuff with the Death Riders and Cope and White, and I just think people are miscast. I don't think Moxley should be champion. I don't think Jay White should be a babyface. Just a lot of stuff, ton of stuff that is wrong with the booking of this show right now. But like I said, if you want to take some positives, definitely MJF Dustin and the Hangman MJF stuff. Okay, now, you're not going to hear me say this too often, but the big show of the week for AEW was Collision, which was technically AEW Grand Slam Australia. They had a big crowd. There's been a lot made about the crowd and the timing and the fact that it wasn't live, and but it looked like I think they had 11,000 people. The place was packed. The crowd was red hot all night. This felt like a pay-per-view. This probably should have been a pay-per-view. I probably would have just added a couple, I don't know, 2 or 3 matches, made it 3 hours, and made it a pay-per-view. It just, the atmosphere and everything, this would have been a good pay-per-view. That's how good the show was. So we start off with Takeshita and Fletcher versus Ospreay and Kenny Omega. The sign of the night was remake The Simpsons Hit and Run. I agree with that guy who made the sign. Very good game back in the day, and Kenny Omega did take notice. Speaking of Kenny Omega, he came out to that awful new music. Just bring back Battle Cry, please, Kenny. You brought it back for a week, you teased us all, and now you're back to that crap. If anyone out there likes the new music better, feel free to comment and let me know. I think it's terrible compared to Battle Cry. I thought Kenny had one of the better themes in wrestling with Battle Cry. And, all right, enough about that. Big time Kenny chants. Even before he came out, Ospreay came out to a huge pop, pointed to the back, and Kenny came out, huge chants. I do want to take a second also to talk about the stupid ring, quote-unquote, controversy. Apparently, AEW borrowed a ring from PWA for this match. It did have the smaller, like, step-up stairs. It didn't have the big steel stairs, and apparently it was a smaller ring, maybe 18 by 18 instead of 20 by 20 or whatever. I might be off on those measurements, but a little bit smaller. I honestly didn't even notice until I saw it on Facebook and everywhere. I will say this about Tony Khan. I've had plenty of criticism of Tony Khan. I could probably spend a show on criticisms and things he should have done differently. But there's one thing I agree with him on when he talked about the bad faith actors online. Definitely is bad faith actors. I mean, I'm going to get to the rest of the show, but this was a really good night for them. Okay, maybe they mismanaged the time or gambled on the big lead-in from the NBA, whatever, what have you. I will say this, though. The place was full. The crowd was hot. There was a lot of good wrestling on the show. It was a good night for them, a really good night. And I think if they go back to Australia, they're probably going to be in good shape. And people were talking about that the ring was a little bit smaller. I mean, come on, guys. Are you serious? That is bad faith. And I'm going to agree with Tony on that one. Anyway, Callis is on commentary with Mark Davis behind him. Before the match even begun, the crowd was saying, "This is awesome." That's how much they were looking forward to it. So just some highlights here. Takeshita at one point cut off the Terminator that Kenny Omega does, that dive to the outside. But then both heels were dumped out, and the Ospreay and Omega both faced in different directions because Fletcher and Takeshita were on different sides of the ring, and they did the Terminator thing where they hit the mat, and all that stuff. And that took too long, and I thought it looked a little fake when guys wait that long. But I will say this. I stand by my statement. However, the crowd was wicked into it and loved it when they did the double Terminator. F Don Callis chants rang out. Nigel says, these Australians are an unfriendly lot. That got a laugh out of me. There was a lot of good sequences in the match. It was very well choreographed. You didn't see a lot of daylight in the, you might question maybe if it's not your cup of tea, all the choreographed moves and all that stuff. But I got to tell you, they did it very well. At one point, Callis grabbed Ospreay's leg, and he foiled the hidden blade. The story of the match was basically working Kenny's midsection for the heels. There was one scary moment. Now, I just gave them credit for the choreography, but I do have to point this out, where Kenny botched that Poison Rana, which I wish that all of wrestling would just retire. It is not only unrealistic, but just extremely dangerous looking, because you don't even have the control you have in the Canadian Destroyer, which is already, to me, little control. I don't like the move. Kenny botched it. I thought he might have really hurt himself and Takeshita, but they look like they're okay. There was a big time fight forever chants. At one point, all four were in the ring and they were doing the boo yay exchange. Those are the kind of things where the crowd was hot, the match was good. I guess you can overlook it, but I still have to point out that the ref just kind of gave up and everybody stopped tagging. And they do this thing in AEW I don't really like, where Osprey's protecting Omega, like he's laying over him, like, oh no, don't. I mean, what do you like? It's not like he's protecting like some fallen maiden or something. Like Kenny Omega's a grown man. You're a grown man. You're both fighters. If you have the energy to crawl over him, then damn it, like get up and try to fight the two heels off. Like why are you laying over and protecting him like he's some helpless damsel in distress in some movie or something, and you're the brave warrior laying over him. I don't like that stuff. I think that's a little over dramatic and a little overthought and overacting. In the end, the baby faces got the win with a cool move. It was the hidden blade. So, and I was surprised Takeshita took the fall here, but they were in Fletcher's home country. So, Takeshita's up in the hidden blade by Omega. He holds him there, and Osprey jumps off the top rope, hidden blade to the back of Takeshita's head, and with the momentum into the one-winged angel. 1, 2, 3. Osprey and Omega win. So great way to start it. There was a couple things I didn't agree with in the match, but I will admit the crowd was super into it, and most of it was really good. Way to get the crowd hot. They went from that straight into the TBS Championship. So hometown girl Harley Cameron against the champion Mercedes Moné. Harley was super over in Australia. She's been over increasingly anyway, but obviously here, super over. The Mercedes puppet was under the ring, and it did make an appearance. Mercedes at one point got her hands on the puppet and stomped it and kicked it out of the ring. Believe it or not, at some point there was some CEO chants, and I think that was maybe just out of respect of the wrestling. I will say this, and I said it earlier, Harley Cameron, yeah, we all know she's green, and she's actually talked about that in her promos. I thought they did a good job of incorporating reality into, the fact that she's not a very seasoned wrestler. I thought Mercedes did a good job leading her here. I think they had a decent match. I think this was as good of a match as you're going to see out of this stage of Harley Cameron. Harley Cameron did make a comeback with Mini Monet, is what they call the puppet. So the puppet and Harley Cameron made a comeback at one point. She actually hit the Australian Destroyer. So whatever country you're in, the Canadian Destroyer becomes that one. That's an Australian Destroyer. Mercedes at one point powerbombed Harley Cameron. That got a little surprise out of me. We don't really see Mercedes do power moves. The end of the match came when Harley missed a swanton and Mercedes hit her with the moneymaker and won the match. I will say this. I just gave Mercedes some credit. I wish Mercedes would abandon the moneymaker and just go back to whatever they're going to call the bank statement now. Because the moneymaker is just too much of a convoluted move. You got to get the girl up on your back. She's got to spin off you. She's got to take the bump just right. There's been a few very notable botches of that move so far. I'm not even blaming either person. I guess I'm blaming Monet for just using the move because it's a hard move to pull off. The timing has to be exact and precise for that move to look decent, and too often it doesn't. So she had a great finisher, the bank statement that she made really famous, and I think she should just go back to that or come up with something else. Okay, Osprey and Omega are backstage. Kenny challenged Takeshita at Revolution for the title, and Osprey challenged Fletcher to be in a cage in Revolution. So 2 good matches added on there. I'm expecting those to be good. Cope and White versus Mox and Claudio in a street fight. I'm going to say right off the bat, I wasn't a fan of this match. I'm just not a fan of these type of matches. I will say this, though. One of the cool moments of this whole pay-per-view and of wrestling in general of the week, and I'm not even like this gigantic Cope, fan anymore, but I will say this. Him going to Australia, I think the fans know this might be it. The last time he kind of hinted at that in an interview, I think. And they serenaded him with his song, his theme music. They sung along. And when he got in the middle of the ring and they stopped his music, the crowd did the entire next verse. I mean, you could see him welling up. It was an emotional moment. You could feel it even sitting at home. It was one of those magical wrestling moments that you're just like, wow. So I will give that much to this match. It gave us one of the best moments of the whole week in wrestling. The so after that, the him and White, the baby faces, jump started the match, and again, I'm not a big fan of these type of matches. I just some quick highlights. White hit the Blade Runner on Claudio, and then Yuta ran in again, who's not even part of the match, and hit Jay White with the belt, and then White Blade Runner to Yuta. Cope brought out a barbed wire chair, which he hit Moxley in the back with, and apparently it was at least partially real barbed wire because Mox's back was bleeding. Again, just I don't know, just don't like this stuff. At one point, Copeland had, so after the barbed wire chair to the back, he was going to concerto Mox with the barbed wire chair and another chair. Yuta made the save. Cope started to fight him off, and then Shafir hit Cope with the briefcase and dropped him, and Mox choked out Cope, and Moxley actually wins when Copeland passes out to the choke, and the crowd actually cheered bullshit because they really love. And I know people say, "Oh, well, he got heat. He's a heel." You know what? If they felt that good with the song and everything, I got to tell you, I think Tony Khan should have called an audible and just had Copeland pin Claudio or something. I mean, Moxley didn't need that much heat on that night. That, they just had that magical moment. I would have wrote it out. I would have had the baby faces win because Cope's not going to win the world title, for God's sake. I hope not. Well, you know what? I don't know. Him and Moxley, maybe Cope should win the world title. Anyway, so that was the low match in my opinion of the night, but the moment with Cope though was pretty magical and special. Okay, so now we've got the Continental Championship, Okada versus Buddy, and Okada's the champion, and Buddy Matthews, apparently his wife Rhea Ripley was in the crowd. There was like some fan footage, well, not fan footage, but like a camera, a cell phone picture of her going around. She was there to support her husband. Excuse me. So Buddy actually added to some of the ring controversy because I saw this replay after the fact, but when he did his entrance and like hopped off the second rope, he turned his ankle. He blamed it on some of the padding or something, but I got to tell you, I'm not going to pretend, to say that I would have any place to say anything or whatever, but I watched the wrestling in the ring all night, and everybody looked smooth. Maybe it was just they were able to compensate, and he just had an unfortunate mishap. I don't know, but so he was already wrestling this match with a badly turned ankle, which he did a good job of hiding it. I couldn't really tell, and if I did notice it, I probably just thought he was selling. Match begins. Buddy goes for the handshake. He gets the middle finger from Okada. There was big F him up Buddy chants. The crowd was barking, honoring Brody. At one point, Okada said, "Screw this," and went to leave with the belt. And Buddy grabbed the mic and said something about, "Hey, I know I called you a bitch, but now you're just a wanker." And that started wanker chants, and apparently that made Okada madder than being called a bitch because he stormed back to the ring. And at one point, Buddy kicked out of the Rainmaker, and that, I think the announcers pointed out correctly, I don't think that has ever happened yet, at least in AEW. It's a very protected move. So then Matthews hit what they call Matthews Law, which doesn't make sense because when he was Murphy, it was Murphy's Law, and that made sense. Matthews Law doesn't make sense, but anyway, he hit him with that move. That's supposed to be his finisher. Okada kicked out. The crowd cheered bullshit, so you could feel that the crowd really wanted Buddy to win here. Matthews actually got Rhea Ripley submission on Okada at one point, and that got a huge pop from the crowd, and Okada was able to get out of it. Then they did another wonky finish where Buddy has Okada from behind, and Okada's kind of grabbing the ref, and I've never understood this angle, this spot, and both companies have done it, but AEW does it more where you're grabbing the ref, which should already be like a disqualification if you don't immediately let go. And then I guess he's so enamored with looking into your eyes or at your face that he doesn't see you just draw your leg all the way back and mule kick the other guy between the legs. So I don't like that. Again, it's one of those things that makes wrestling just look extra phony. I understand it's predetermined. I get it, but we shouldn't go out of our way to make it look fake. Um, so anyway, Okada hits the mule kick, then hits the Rainmaker, and he wins. And there was no really time with Buddy in the ring or anything because they went straight into a package with Tony Storm and Mariah May. So it would have been nice, I thought, maybe to just have a couple of minutes of Buddy getting some applause from the crowd, but apparently they didn't do that. Maybe his ankle was too bad and he just had to get straight to the back. I don't know. Now we get to the main event, deservingly so, the Women's Championship. And it was the champion Mariah May versus the returning Tony Storm to Australia. Mariah May made her entrance first. I'm not a fan of that. I think the champion should come out last. That's just me. I'm old school. I understand we're in Australia. It's Timeless Tony Storm's first match back as Timeless Tony Storm. I don't care. I still think the champion should come out last. But anyway, Mariah May came out. Luther was up in the stands doing some kind of, I don't know what, gesticulations or whatever he was doing. And then Tony Storm's original music hit, and I was like, that's interesting. What are they doing here? But then it quickly transitioned into the Timeless Tony Storm music, and she got a huge pop. There was a big F her up Tony chants. Tony Storm, at one point in the match, actually pretty early on, was hitting multiple Germans. Kind of reminded me, I was like, are they going to do like a Brock Cena thing here where she just wipes her out? But they didn't. Mariah May started coming back. There was actually big FU Nigel chants at one point because they know he loves Mariah May, and Mariah May had major heat here in Australia. Mariah May at one point hit the Mayday on the outside. I wrote again, both outside too long. It was, again, just if it's not a no count out match, you shouldn't be able to be outside for like 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes at a time with no count out. But that was a little I won't call it a nitpick. I think it's a reasonable argument, but this was a really good match. May hit a really impressive shotgun drop kick off the top rope at one point. May kicked out of the Storm Zero. Tony kicked out of 2 Maydays. So when Mariah May did get the advantage and she hit 2 Maydays, I was like, oh man, here's the out. Tony Storm's gonna lose in Australia. Nope. She kicked out and she was kind of not really playing possum, but just really dead. And Mariah May was trying to pick her up, and then boom, small package. Tony Storm wins the title. She's the first ever 4-time women's champion in AEW. Now, I know I just kind of breezed through that match and gave you just the highlights. I would encourage people to go watch it. This whole episode, other than some of my critiques, I thought it was overall a really good show, really good crowd, and a really good night for AEW. Maybe the best Collision they've ever put on. I know that's not an exactly super high bar, but it's still, probably the best episode. And I think it was worthy of a pay-per-view. I think you could have added maybe 2 or 3 other big matches, like if MJF was there or something, and probably turn this into a pay-per-view. And I will say this, I think MJF and Dustin may have been the best men's match of the week in wrestling. I'd have to really think about that, so don't kill me if I'm forgetting something on WWE, but I don't remember anything standing out that big time from Raw or SmackDown. I think those were just kind of average episodes. And Tony Storm and Mariah May was definitely the best women's match of the week, and one of the better women matches, I think, in recent time, like at least in months. So I will give AEW kudos, their flowers, whatever your phrase you want to use. I thought Dynamite was not really good other than a couple of things, but I thought Collision was the opposite. Really good, except for just a couple of things. So I guess I'll give AEW a 50-50 week. A not so good episode of Dynamite, but a really good episode of Collision. And people can say whatever about ratings and this, that, and the other. I feel like AEW has some momentum. If they can avoid laying some eggs like they did on Wednesday for a lot of that show, I've said it before. I critique both companies. It's just that AEW has a lot more to critique recently. I think objectively people would agree with that. If you're not a die-in-the-wool, partisan, I want AEW to do well, and that's why I critique them. Not that I think anyone's gonna, I don't think Tony Khan's gonna say, oh, well, Jason thinks this, so let me change the show. But I'm just saying in general, I'm just putting it out into space that these are the things I'm seeing. These are the things I wish they would improve because I want them to do well. I want AEW to exist. I'm not one of these fanboys that's rooting for WWE to just dominate again and be the only wrestling. That's not good for anyone. Competition's good. I gotta say, even with this whole partnership with TNA, and now they've got Evolve on Tubi, and now their WWE ID prospect thing they got going on with indie talent, there's going to come to a point where there's not anywhere for anyone else to farm from, and I think that's the point they're aiming for. And I know people are excited about the collabs and stuff. I just gotta say that I don't know if that's good for wrestling overall. I'm sure it's good for WWE. I'm sure that they're happy choking off AEW and their ability to find talent in places. But anyway, didn't mean to go into that tangent. My point is I critique AEW because I want them to do well and I want them to get better. But that's my opinions on AEW for the week. If you stuck around this long, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I think they've got some momentum, and I'm looking forward to Revolution. But anyway, thanks for joining me. Like I said, please share, please like, please subscribe, please interact, comment, all that good stuff. But above all, please hit that subscribe button so that you can know when I have new episodes out. And thanks for joining us, and stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks, guys.